Hello and welcome to our live stream. We're starting a little bit late. I'm having some technical issues. Computer was jammed up. Let's get Christy on here. Christy, you might mute some audio or something there because it's feeding back. So here you come. So here's Christy, everybody. Say hi, Christy.
Hi, Christy.
So Christy, you are at your hotel in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and you've been working hard for your envoy job.
Yeah, yes, you can hear me, right?
I can hear you, but I'm hearing a whole bunch of noise.
That's weird.
Okay. Oh, Cameron. Okay. No, just hang on, Cameron. Let me mute you for a second. But yeah, we'll get to you in just a minute. Which, by the way, that's going to be one of the things that we have coming up is Cameron Morrison. If you guys remember that watched, Cameron had an engine out with his family aboard and put it down safely on a highway. And we're going to do a follow-up with Cameron here just shortly. We've also got DPE Joe Casey coming on in just a little bit, and Joe's standing by. And you'll be able to ask some DPE questions and find out, hey, are check rides happening right now? So those are some of the things we've got going on. We got Matt Wells, tower controller, who's trying to call me right now, but I can't really answer the phone, Matt. So you're probably telling me something really important about how the live feed's all messing up or something.
Can everybody see us live yet? If you can see us, go ahead and say something in the chat.
Good. And now the noise. I was able. What happened is that I had some of our guests have joined us, and so hear them but see them, but I fixed that. So we're good right now.
Matt says he can't see us on the live, so I'm on the live on my phone. I've muted it, but this is what it shows.
Okay. Can everybody see us? Comment and let us know. I don't know what Matt is seeing at this point. Oh, if Matt's logging in, like Joe and Cameron who are waiting, they won't be able to see the show unless they pull up the show on a different device. So yeah, it's all good.
They cannot. I just sent a message and I just said, can you guys see us yet? And they said no.
Who's that? Because everybody on the comments are saying they see us.
Oh, maybe.
They say, love the perm, Christy.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah, so we're good to go. Let's carry on with the show. So I do want to welcome everybody. We got a lot of stuff coming up. And Matt may have had trouble connecting in, but that's fine. We'll still get to Matt here in a little bit. Right off the bat, let's just jump right into Joe Casey, DPE. So Joe, as you guys know, has been on the show quite a bit. And Joe, I'm going to first, before I bring you on, Joe, I'm going to go ahead and show a clip from one of our most popular videos to date. Just a clip. So let's watch that.
Now let's talk about a skid.
Okay.
A skid is where if you bank to the left and then you add left pedal, you can now see that the fuselage blanks the lower wing. So if I get in a high angle attack, the lower wing is going to be the one that's going to stall first, losing lift, and the airplane's going to fall over on its back. I can do it the other way, just the same. You can go right bank, right pedal, and you notice the lower wing is blanked. And so when this lower wing loses lift, it's going to flip over on its back. And when it flips over on its back, the airplane's going to enter into a spin.
All right, so that is Joe Casey. Joe is going to join us from his home in East Texas. I'm guessing you're in East Texas right now. Joe, thanks for coming. Oh, I didn't unmute Joe. That's my bad. So getting used to this kind of stuff. So Joe, now we can hear you.
Great. Hey, it's good to be here. I appreciate you letting me be on.
All right. So Joe, that clip that I played was from the episode that you explained in such a way that I'd never heard before, the difference between a slip versus a skid, and why you demonstrated, more importantly, why skids are bad. Because I didn't even understand that. You had showed me that at my CFI check ride, and then came back on studio to show that. This has gotten some of the most positive comments we've ever had in a video.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. It's kind of nice because I had a student or a candidate for a private pilot come to me yesterday and gave her an engine out scenario, and she was high and on the thing, but put in a beautiful slip, got right back down, made the runway perfectly. And at the end, she said, "Hey, I watched that video you did on In the Hangar," and she said, and it helped just then. So I was really excited to hear that people are watching it.
All right. Well, very cool. Christy, do you have any questions for Joe about DPEs and check rides and things like that?
So I think there's something going on with the feed, Dan. I can't hear Joe Casey at all on my end.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, everybody on the YouTube on the stream here is saying they can't see us. And I've been texting with Matt Wells. He said he's not seeing it either. And I asked, I sent you a screenshot. I asked and people are saying no, and they're commenting on that YouTube stream. And I'm not getting anything from any of our guests, not Joe or anybody.
Okay, so
Somebody's here.
yeah, it's looking good for us.
It's like Brian even said, Brian Turner saying no, nothing. Like, I mean, there's a bunch of people on here, and they're like, I'm not, and this is on the YouTube stream. Carl.
Oh, they're telling me there's two streams going on. Oh. Okay, I think I know what's happened. Everybody, just give me a second here. Yeah, because I tried to schedule something. Oh, that's not good. This is all my bad for technical stuff. Joe, I apologize. I'm going to fix this real quick, hopefully. And I'm going to kill one. So those who are watching one stream, I'm going to kill it. And if I need to, I'll just restart this stream. Sorry, guys. We're still trying to figure out this stuff in the age of everything. So I'm going to delete this and see what happens. Okay, now, Christy, all those that are watching from that are going to go away. Yeah, so the problem is there's two different feeds on YouTube. So some of you on YouTube are saying, hey, I can see you just fine, and others are saying they can't. It's simply because I messed up in doing a pre-schedule, and it launched two different feeds at the same time. So now I've killed one of the streams. So hopefully Matt and all those guys can come over to this other stream. So yes, that other stream is now dead. Okay, so Joe, yes. I've got to ask you this while we wait for some people to kind of catch up. You amaze me in aviation in that you fly so many different things, and not only just fly them, you master them. So out of everything, you're the Malibu expert. You flew Apache helicopters. You've flown it all. What is your favorite thing to fly?
Right now, it'd probably be a Stearman that I purchased a Stearman here recently, and I'm having a ball with it, figuring out both how to fly it and how to fly it well. Just little things about how to make the audio and the work in the cockpit so I can talk back and forth well, and that's a real challenge in an open cockpit airplane. So both learning how to fly it with a lot of precision and learning all the ins and outs of flying an open cockpit biplane I'm having a big time with that. So probably the Stearman's my new favorite, the one that I'm flying the most here lately.
Okay, so I've had I see that pilots fall into two classifications, and the bigger classification are those who just love to fly through the air, burn holes in the sky, whatever you want to call it. And then a smaller group is those who just love to fly because it's a really cool way to get from point A to point B. I fall into that later category. So to me, I want a plane that's cool, that has all the good avionics and can get me there from A to B and really fast and that kind of stuff. But I'm guessing now you're more the one that in the first group that just wants to burn holes in the sky and just love the thrill and joy of flying.
I'm in both groups. So let me tell you, it's funny. I used to be stationed at Osan, at Camp Humphreys in Korea, and Osan Air Base was just down the road and had a bunch of F-16s all over the place. And it was interesting because the F-16 pilots all wanted to come over and fly Blackhawks so they could hover, not so they could go anywhere, but hovering's like really, really cool. And all the Blackhawk guys, all we wanted to do was go jump in an F-16 and go mock whatever. And of course, it never happened. No, none of those guys got to ride with us, and we didn't get to ride with them. But it made me appreciate the low and the slow, and the being able to just be down to where you can really see what's going on. But if I'm going somewhere, I want to fly something really nice and fast. And so I appreciate both worlds. I really enjoy the low and the slow, and I really enjoy the high and the fast. And so to me, one other story about this, I've got a good friend that's an astronaut, and he's come to see me several times. And when we do, we go fly I have a Porterfield, which is a 65 horsepower engined old airplane. I mean, cars outrun it all the time. But when he comes to see me, we go fly in the Porterfield, and the story is flying is flying is flying. In other words, it's you can get bored with the space shuttle or with something really, really fast if that's all you do. And eventually you'll get bored with it. But I'm a kind of guy that needs a lot of variety, a lot of change, and that's what works for me. So I love getting into King Air and going a long way, and I love getting into Stearman and flying over the trees of East Texas. So they're both fun.
All right, Chris, you have a question?
Not really a question, just so much as a comment. I mean, I'm like Joe. I can really appreciate aviation in almost all forms. And a couple of things on my bucket list, of course, are going to be the seaplane and gliders. So I've decided that I'd like to try that out. And
Yeah.
but honestly, now that I'm flying bigger airplanes, I get to go high and fast all the time. I really appreciate going low and slow in the Warrior. It's probably my favorite thing.
All right. So Joe, and speaking of going low and slow these days, you're a DPE. With the COVID virus, are you able to give check rides? Is that still happening?
Yeah, for me, it is. I happen to live in East Texas, which is certainly not the epicenter of the COVID virus right now. And so we don't have a requirement to stay at home where I live. We're certainly being very, very careful, but I can still administer check rides and have here lately. The FAA administered guidance to us that we were allowed to, but to use caution and care. I think it's a responsibility for us to continue as much normal as we can nowadays. In other words, I just think as much normal as we can put back into our lives is good. So I've been giving check rides but being very careful about it. But I've been doing it, and I think it's a good thing.
All right, very good. Hey, and for those who are watching, if you got any check ride questions, we'll take one or two real quick, and then we'll keep moving on. So one person, going back to just the joy of flying, did ask. They wanted to know whether you like what do you like better, a B-36 or a 210. Better be careful how you answer that, Joe.
Yeah. Well, a Cessna 210, I assume is what they're asking.
Yeah.
I like high wing airplanes mostly because I like looking at the ground as opposed to looking at the sky. And, when I'm sitting in a high wing airplane, I can see the ground real easily. Now, that being said, just about every airplane that I make a living with a low wing airplane, a PA-46 or a King Air or, something of that nature. So I'm cool with both of them, but I do think the 210 is a really great airplane. So that's probably just a little bit more, and I wouldn't go far with it.
And if it was just Christy asking you, maybe you wouldn't go that far.
I would just like to point out I can see down on the ground just fine in the Warrior.
Yeah.
No.
Well, one question Joe's being asked, and I think I know the answer to this, maybe I don't, is what is your scariest kiss the ground moment in aviation? Kiss the ground after it happened.
Gosh. Scariest kiss the ground moment. There's one time I had a complete engine failure at 15,000 feet. Yeah, in Malibu at 15,000 feet, and had to circle down through an undercast and landed successfully. And that was one that I was really scared about. And after I landed, I was scared. There was another time that I landed a Black Hawk under night vision goggles at night and in a field, and put it down and was getting out, and there was a huge stump. I mean, just inches from the belly of the Black Hawk that would have, had we landed just a little bit differently, would have ended with a completely different outcome. That made me really pause and think, for sure. I think everybody in aviation has a story somewhere related to a thunderstorm where they got too close, something happened, the bolt of lightning didn't hit them, but boy, it scared the padoodle out of them. I think as we come into this next season of flying, we're about to enter the time where thunderstorms are a really big deal. We're going to see a lot of them, and I think it's good for everybody just to kind of have that thought process of, hey, avoiding a thunderstorm is really a good idea, and especially as we're about to get a lot more of them. I can probably think of 5 or 6 different times where a thunderstorm scared me really bad, and ones where I really thought I was safe, but I wasn't. So I think that's probably the biggest thing I'd want people to hear is, guard yourself against thunderstorms. Stay away.
Yeah, my kiss the ground moment would be a thunderstorm, or one of a couple. Christy, what about you?
I've never flown into or around a thunderstorm.
No, I mean kiss the ground scary moment.
I just want to point that out though. But however, the thought of doing that definitely terrifies me. I have been in some wind shear events that were like pretty scary, especially coming into Addison. And if you've ever flown into Addison, it's already turbulent coming in there anyway. But then when you get those low-level wind shear alerts, that makes it really interesting. I've been involved in several wake turbulence events. One of those, of course, people are somewhat familiar with my wake turbulence with Brian Turner. That was not a kiss the ground moment, but it was really, really funny. I think he had the out-of-body experience when that happened, though. But I have been in a couple of, pretty serious ones, though, that we actually had to make corrective action to get out of it. So I've been in small business jets that have had pressurization issues, but we were able to mitigate it, do our pilot thing, run the checklist, and then get back. We returned to the airport on one of those. There was another time on a King Air where there was a faulty dump switch, and so we couldn't get very high because it wasn't pressurizing correctly, so we had to land and troubleshoot that. So just a bunch of little things. When you're a lower time pilot, you're looking at it going, should I be doing this? And then you realize, you know what, I was trained to do this. And I'm still here to talk about those things. I'm sure those more events will come, but yeah, I'm not hoping to fly into a thunderstorm, but I'm hoping to learn from my experiences for sure.
Okay, so we do have a couple of questions real quick, Joe,
Okay.
for check rides. What is the most, real quick, let's go through some of these. What is the most common check ride mistake?
Most common check ride mistake is either being just way too nervous coming into the check ride and hitting a stumbling point and giving up. And then another one that I would say that I think I see is some people that get down when they're flying so far down into the weeds that they miss the big picture. Let me give you an example of this. Recently, I gave a check ride where I administered an engine out scenario, and that pilot, which was doing a fine job, really knew the books, really knew their stuff, pulled out the checklist and just began going down the checklist like very methodically, as that person was not flying the airplane very well, and ended up straying away from the airport just enough so that that person missed the runway. As we missed the runway because they were doing the checklist. Now, checklist is great, and that's all well and good and wonderful, but they got so myopic on what was happening as far as check ride itis and making sure that they followed that checklist perfectly that they ended up missing the whole runway. And keeping a big picture when you're flying, as well as meeting the small areas, I think that's a hard one to say, but it's easy to. but you can definitely see it when somebody's under a stressful situation. You can see where the blinders just come down to that one small area and they miss all this periphery.
Well, you mentioned nervous. The very next question was, I'm so nervous. How do I handle this, and how do I prepare? What would you say
Yeah.
to the person to help mitigate nervousness coming into a check ride?
Man, just consider the worst case scenario. I mean, if in a worst case scenario is you walk home with a pink slip, and you get to come back and try it again some other day, and that's the worst that can happen. And if you keep that kind of perspective, then if you can, it's easy to plan for that worst. But it's sort of like, public speaking, and people get worried about that. But think about the worst that can happen. You get a little embarrassed. That's all. But in a check ride, people are very fearful of not performing well and not. I just see nervousness being something that really precludes them from performing at their top level.
All right, one more question. Let's see. Somebody saying they're a new CFI. What is your best but more obscure tip for being a great CFI? We'll finish with that one.
I got two things for being a great CFI. Number one, don't be scared to fly the airplane. In other words, in my early days of flying, I gave up the controls and let the student fly a lot, thinking it was my job to make sure that they flew the majority, or not a majority, but 90% of a flight. Nowadays, I'll spend some time, especially I did a tailwheel endorsement the other day with a client. And I did the first 3 takeoffs and landings, then they did 1, and then I did 2, and then they did 1, and then I did 2, and they did 2. And then it began to reverse itself. And with just the student being able to watch you do your task, they'll catch more from what you do than what you say. It's sort of like raising kids. You can say it all day, but they're going to watch what you do. So do it sometimes. So be good at your task. As a CFI, and that way you don't have to use your mouth quite as much. You can say, no, do it this way, and then go fly the airplane. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And then the other one is just kind of be patient and let the student mess up to a place, not where they get hurt, but let them go a little further out and venture off, and then be able to correct and discuss what happened. But sometimes we stop the event before it ever occurs, and and we don't want to hurt an airplane or hurt people, but to let that student really develop in that situation, I think is 2 areas that would help a new CFI.
All right, good. Well, Joe, I said one last question, but I'll do one more because it's funny to me. Have you ever had a student fail? Somebody asked, have you ever had a student fail due to trying to appear too knowledgeable? Do you have the overconfident student that gets failed?
No, but I've had them.
I can't see that happening.
No, but I've had them dig holes because I have had a place where I asked a question that was a softball pitch question, and where I was expecting an easy answer, and then it turned around that they gave me the encyclopedia answer that wasn't right. And now what do you do with that? And you got to turn. So listen to the question, answer the question. And, in other words, it's not that I have to bring up a subject and then you tell me everything you know about that subject. Just answer the question and move on. So, yes.
Well, Christy, you have a funny story about that, about answering the question. Do you remember which one that is? As I throw a softball up to you? Do you know this or that about whatever? And the answer is yes.
Oh, yes. So, one of the best pieces of advice, like check ride advice I was ever given was, do you know what this is? And I responded like, why, yes, this is a water bottle. And the answer, that's not the correct answer. What, do you know what this is? And I just said, yes. And they said, that's correct. That's the right answer. So you don't want to dig yourself into rabbit holes. If you know the answer, like if you're asked a question like that, do you know what this is? The answer is yes. And then just move on from there. Don't try to look smart or, whatever. It could wind up going way far away. Like, oh, really? What kind of water is it? What are the ingredients?
That's exactly what Joe Casey would do.
Where does it come from? How was it made? tell me about the structure of it. I mean, just so much.
Right,
I
Joe?
I agree completely. Yes, that's exactly right.
All right. Well, Joe, thanks so much for coming on, and appreciate you being here and for your time on this Thursday evening.
You
And
bet.
all right, so
Yeah, thanks for letting me be here. Bye.
all right, okay, and so everybody, that was DPE Joe Casey, who we love to have onto the show. Joe is awesome. So coming up next, if you guys have watched the channel, one of our favorite things that Christy and I get to do is talk to people who have been in emergencies. And one of the most electrifying stories that we've ever had was when, I'm doing a lead in, and our next guest just disappeared too. So, Cameron, if you're listening, if you can log back in, that would be great. So one of the most electrifying moments was a guy who was flying Comanche, and he was a relatively low time pilot, and the engine went out. And so, without further ado, I am going to bring in Cameron Morrison. Cameron, you've been waiting patiently to join us. So, thanks for coming.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
I'm trying to get the best stream here. Okay, we'll go with this. Brady Bunch. Okay, so Cameron, in our episode, you talked about bringing that Comanche down on a highway, and we're getting some feedback, but I will live with it. Tell me about what happened afterwards. What happened to the Comanche? You talked about possibly buying a Cirrus. So tell us what's transpired.
Yeah, so I wound up overhauling the engine. We suspected it was a camshaft failure, and it wasn't a camshaft failure. It was the idler. The idler shaft gave way. It failed, so the idler gear fell down in like through the casing, I guess, into the camshaft. Everything stopped in the engine. It was something that they said even if I had an overhaul on that motor, um, it was a high time motor. It was like 1960 hours. So I asked him, I said, should I have gotten it overhauled? Because all the cylinders were in the 70s. The annual was great on the plane. I said, I asked them, should I have gotten overhauled? And they said that was something that they probably wouldn't have caught even during the overhaul. That specific motor, it's a Lycoming motor. Since they've overhauled it, I've got 50, 60 hours on the plane. It was down for about 6 months, having everything redone. But that specific engine, they said that they had seen that idler shaft gear over 10 years. They said they'd seen like eight or nine of them fell the way that one.
Cameron, let me just mention real quick. We're getting some kind of feedback, and I think it's canceling the sound. Do you have two sources up right now?
Here, let me. How does that sound now?
I can. Yeah, that seems to have done a lot better.
Okay, I had the phone sitting on this cushion, and I think I had
working.
the microphone covered up. Here, let me try this.
Okay. All right. So we're still
How do
working
we
on
sound
Cameron.
now?
It sounds great.
That's
so
better.
The Comanche is part of the. Yeah, it's much better. The Comanche is part of the Piper family, right? Christy, have you flown a Comanche before? Well, has Christy flown a Comanche before? Christy, you not hear us now? Okay, well, all right. We'll keep going here. Cameron, so you didn't buy a Cirrus?
No, I haven't.
And you decided to fix it.
Yeah, I looked at them for a while. I went and test flew one. I didn't like the stall.
I have flown a twin Comanche.
Oh, she's a little behind.
I responded.
Yeah,
okay,
she responded. The Cirrus, it's an awesome plane. I love it. But as far as like the stall character, I mean, it's an incredible machine. I do like it a lot, but I wound up overhauling the Comanche, the engine on it, and I did the ADSB in and out, the 345, the Garmin 345 GTX. I did a G5 on it. I've done some upgrades on it. I think I'm gonna probably fly it for 500 hours or so, and then probably move on to something else. I'm told financially that's the best thing to do, is like the first 500 hours in a motor after you do an overhaul. That's like free time,
Right.
because there's once you hit 500 hours, there's you don't lose any value, you don't gain any value having less than 500 hours. There's nothing added. I was scared for a little bit, and I wasn't going to get back in the plane, but I got back in the plane. I've flown it. I've got the Atom A500. I've got probably around 7 or 8 hours in it now. It's down for annual right now, but I really like that plane a lot, and it's a twin, and it performs similar to a Cirrus, but it's I don't know. I've got the Comanche and then the Atom, but I don't know what I'm gonna do. I toss it around a lot. I've got a love for cars, so I just bought the new 2020 mid-engine Corvette. So I play with it, and I'm working on my instrument rating. So my main thing
Oh,
is
good.
to finish up my instrument. I've got my hours. I took the test. I failed it by one question. I scored
Oh,
a 67, 68 on it, somewhere around there, whatever one question
That's the
was.
worst. That's
Yeah,
always the
yeah,
worst.
it stunk.
yeah.
So
Bert Turner can help you on the testing.
who?
Bert Turner, he can help you with the testing.
Okay.
He's really good at that.
Oh,
No,
awesome.
I'm just
Cool.
being facetious. He got kicked out of he got banned by the FAA for taking tests. But the ban was recently lifted, and we'll have Brian on a little bit to talk about that. Now, you've taken your you've taken your Comanche into the shop recently, and I just want to toss this out as a not so shameless plug. You know, we are sponsored by Wingfield Aviation now.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, you took your plane to Wingfield, didn't you?
Yeah, I flew it to him
How's that
yesterday.
going?
Oh man.
Well,
Um, so I don't. So I put. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. First and foremost, I like everybody.
right.
But my wife asked me. She said, "You used to fly all the time, and now I've had the motor back in for heck going on 7, 8 months now, and I haven't flown the way I used to." And my wife's like, "Why haven't you flown as much as you used to?" And I'm like, "I don't know. There's just something. We threw the new motor in. It was put in by a APIA, but I never felt like everything was gone through. So I took it to Wingfield, and he started going through it yesterday, and he sent me a list of squawks today. It's an older plane. It's a 1958 model plane. Every time that anybody would look at it, change the oil, whatever. Oh, everything looks great. And for me, it's like the plane's in 1958. Things need to be adjusted. Things need to be fixed. And I would have people look at it all the time, multiple shops, and everybody would just, oh yeah, everything's fine. And that's just not reassuring to me, because there's squawks, there's things that need to be fixed.
It's a
So I took it
60-year-old
to
plane.
him. Yeah, yeah, and I want to fly it, and I told my wife, I'm like, I just don't have confidence in that plane. I was thinking about going and getting, like I said, a Cirrus. It was a little bit out of my price range. The one I wanted, was almost $1 million. 50, $60,000 shy of $1 million. So then I started looking at 182s, and then the 182, it's a little slower than what I was used to, as far as the Comanche goes. So I started looking at a newer plane, just so I had newer stuff. I wanted stuff that I knew was good. Well, anyways, circling back around to Wingfield, he hasn't even had the plane 24 hours, and he sent me a whole squawk list of things, and I called him, and I was like, man, I feel good. And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, I like, I feel good. I feel like you've gone through my plane. There was, so far probably 10 different things he found that were mechanical issues, just issues, and they were there. They've been there. Nobody's caught them. He caught them, and he kind of sounded surprised. He's like, "Well, I thought it was bad news, and you're going to be upset." And I'm like, "No, I'm glad these things have been found. Like I feel good now. I feel like somebody's gone through my plane and they've looked at it. We've caught them. Like, let's fix it." And I called my wife immediately too and told her, "Hey, like this guy, he found 10 different things," and I started going through what he found, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, you know." And I'm like, yeah, it's, some of the things were pretty important, like a screw that was half in the prop governor. I mean, any minute it was gonna pop out of the prop governor. I had the prop governor overhauled. It's got a new starter, new cylinders, new motor. I mean, I spared no
Hey, if
expense
that
on.
happened, you know how to handle the emergency.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, anyways, yeah, I can't say I haven't gotten the bill yet, but I can't say enough good things about Wingfield. So far, it's been great. He caught a lot of things that nobody else has caught. I mean, a hand, two hand, 10 at least 10 things that he sent pictures of every one of them. And now that I assisted, watched, and observed the engine being removed, the engine being put back on. So I'm recognizing, the pictures that he's sending me. I'm recognizing the parts, and I understand now more than I did a year ago about all the different aspects of the engine and the way it's put together. So everything he's sending is clicking in my head, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe nobody's caught this yet, and until yesterday. So
Wow.
I'm excited about that. I'm real happy. Hope he gets it fixed. When he gets it fixed, I'm going to be flying a lot more than I've been flying lately, because I just felt like, once I got the engine back overhauled, we got it back on quick, and I've given it to people. Hey, do an oil change, go through it, and every time, oh, everything looks great, and that's what you want to hear. But um, on a 1958 plane, there's bound to be squawks. So he's catching them, and I'm feeling good about it. So
All right.
yeah.
All right. Chrissy, are you getting my text, by the way?
Your text?
Okay, I won't worry about that then. I'll go ahead and ask the question. So, Cameron, one question that we do have is, if you're not so confident about flying in the Comanche up to this point, your wife, with your back when the accident happened, your child was under 2, right, or even under 1.
Yeah, she
Your
was
daughter
March 4th of 17, so she had just turned 2.
just turned 2.
Yeah.
So,
So,
at,
no,
if
wait.
you're not so confident in the Comanche, have you been taking them for rides?
No, they haven't been back in it yet.
Oh, wow. Have
Yeah,
they
not yet.
been back in your other
If I
plane?
if I ask them to, like if I said, "Hey, let's go," they'd go. But I just, I haven't. When I get it back from Wingfield, I'll put a few hours on it, obviously, and then if everything feels good, then I'll no hesitation throwing them in it.
Well, if
Or
you want a CFI to go up with you or anything, I happen to know one. So
awesome, cool.
And one question that Nathan Ballard's asked, and I like this question: any update, from your emergency story? Any new recollections that you might have had since taping that? Because we taped that like 5 days after your incident.
Right.
Any new recollections about the accident?
Well, so it wasn't an accident. It was just it was an off-field landing. So what I've learned on the motor, it's a Lycoming 540 A1B5 is that specific engine. IO 540 A1B5. So that engine, the idler gear it sits, the idler gear sits on a post, and the post recessed back like into the casing. You get the casing over the back of the engine. So the post, they said it over the last 10 years, they've had like 8 or 9 of these idler gear shafts fail. They said there's a fix for it. Well, the fix is a longer idler shaft gear, and then they mill out the back of the case. They mill out the inside of the casing so that shaft sits inside the case, and it has additional support. So it's supported from the engine casing and then or the engine block, and then I guess the back side of the casing. So it's supported from both sides. So they said that they would make that modification on my engine so that that doesn't happen again. Well, they got the engine and they had the engine for a day or two, and they called me and they said, "Hey, you know that modification?" I said, "Yeah." They said, "Your engine already had it." And I said, "So why did it fail?" And the only thing that they could chalk it up to was harmonics balancing. They said harmonics balancing maybe could have prevented it. I said, I'm like, what the heck is that? I don't know what harmonics balancing is. So as I researched and looked into it, it's do y'all know what it is?
Yes, on the
I know what
yeah.
harmonics is in the physics sense. Yes.
Yeah. So you have somebody come out and they pull your spinner off and they hook this contraption up to your plane. They run it and then they balance it so it stops all the vibration in the airplane that you get from things being unbalanced. So I had that done. They said have it done after you break the engine in. I said no. I want to have it done now. So harmonics balance it now, and then I'll do it again after I break the engine in because I didn't want to take
Good
any
idea.
risk. So I learned about harmonics balancing. I'm trying to learn something from this. What could I have done different? And now I'm trying to figure out where Dan went. Where'd he go?
Yeah, Dan disappeared. It's just
He's
us
just
now.
he's
But
just
yeah,
he's
that
got
harmonics balance, that sounds really interesting. So it's
yeah.
like the harmonics frequency of the propeller, I'm assuming, just like
Yeah,
in.
well, the vibrations that you get in the plane
Hmm.
too. A plane that's
Yeah,
like that's harmonic, that's harmonically balanced. You're not gonna.
right.
Hey, what's up, Dan? Oh, he.
I've been here. I just didn't want people to see me get my Diet Coke, and so I
Oh,
was
gotcha.
listening. And also somebody was saying they couldn't really see you, and I thought,
I think it was because Cameron's just in a little bit of a shadow with his hat and everything,
Oh, here
though.
I can turn it around.
There you go.
Is that better?
Yeah, I recognize you.
Okay. So uh, I think he turned himself off again. He must be drinking
He
his
doesn't want people
Diet
to see
Coke.
him drink his Diet
Yeah,
Coke now. It's okay. I
yeah.
don't care. Look, I'll drink my
okay,
water.
fine. Here,
Look,
I'm back.
look,
I'm
I'll
here.
drink my water in front of you. Oh, look, there you go.
uh,
Okay, all right. Well, so
so
that's really
harmonics
interesting
balancing.
about
Yeah, I
the
mean,
pitch.
I try to learn something from it. Why did this happen to me? Why did my engine shut off? I was out in West Texas, I guess 2 weekends ago, and we met another couple out there that had a Beechcraft, and they flew. It was Marfa, Texas. We're out in Marfa, and we started talking planes, and I said, "Yeah, I had an engine out," and they were like, "Oh my gosh, tell us your story. We've never met anybody that's had an engine out." And then the guy, he was pretty knowledgeable. He started going through the statistics, and he's like, of engines that stop or people that crash or whatever, it's like 35% of the time it's mechanical, and it's just a really rare thing to have happen. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I've heard, and it happened to me, and it sucks. And
Mm.
so I don't want it to happen again. And so I search and search and try to find, uh, some try to learn something from it. So this, I mean, I went to Corona. So I had Corona engines do the overhaul. So I went to Corona, California.
Corona
Just
engines.
yeah,
Yeah, I
Corona
was gonna
engines.
say, wow, that's.
I mean,
Yeah.
are we just going to leave that there?
Do what?
I'm not
Are
touching
we
that.
just going to leave that there?
I'm not
Corona
gonna touch
engines?
it. Nope.
What?
Not touch it.
What? I don't understand the significance. What's wrong with that?
Corona?
Oh God. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that's
So
funny.
yeah, that is funny. Yeah, I didn't even think about it. So anyways, yeah, Corona engines, they did the overhaul. I wonder how their business is doing right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, it's
Either really good or really bad.
yeah, and just real quick, Cameron, let me interject because I've had a couple people ask. For those who weren't there when Cameron started, and also who have not seen our previous episode, just in a nutshell, Cameron was flying with his wife and his baby when they had an engine out. The engine failed at 8,500 feet, and he had to put down an emergency landing, and he landed on a highway in Texas, and successfully. And anyway, it was an amazing thing, especially because Cameron is not like a many 1,000-hour pilot. The guy had only been a pilot for a very short time. And when you listen, go watch the episode. When you listen to his voice on the ATC, the guy was a cool cucumber. He was
Nerves of
amazing.
steel, dude. You could write a book.
Nerves of steel. So that's who we're talking to, and we're getting an update from Cameron since that accident or incident. I keep saying accident. It's not an accident. Since that incident happened.
Yeah, landed on the highway. They towed the airplane 12 miles down the road to Olney, Texas,
where there are bar. Yeah, in the parking lot.
Yeah. Well, they towed it 1 mile down the road to the bar to get it off the highway, and then TxDOT had to come out and shut the highway down, and then tow it 12 miles down the road to Olney Airport, where Air Tractor is located.
Yeah.
I'm going to find that episode, and I'm going to go ahead and link it in the comments for people so that they can just click on it, okay?
All right. Well, very good. And thanks for updating us, Cameron, on your situation. And
yeah, thank you all for having me.
I'm glad that you got your Comanche into Wingfield, and let us know how that goes, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thanks again for coming, and we'll see you next time.
Bye. We'll see y'all later.
Later.
All right, so that's Cameron, and while Christy's getting those comments, I just want to say that a lot's going on with the coronavirus, and what I want to do is I want to bring in somebody from the ATC world, our friend Tower Controller Extraordinaire. I'm going to bring in Matt Wells. Matt,
here we go.
Here we go. So there is Matt Wells.
What
so
up?
I am not. That's all your shirt says. I am not.
I'm not always right. Oh wait, yes I am.
I don't see Matt.
Just imagine me.
Just imagine you. Imagine Matt. So Matt
I don't hear Matt either, though. I don't see or hear him.
Dan, can you hear me?
I hear you, which is probably. I'm sure it'll come. So you may be on that lag.
Christy's on that lag.
How is the ATC world going with the coronavirus? Are people still flying?
People are still flying indeed, but it's kind of slowed down. It's slowed down to the point to where they got us, and it was announced on Facebook and everywhere else that they've nationally got us down to having like 5 days on and 5 days off. So right now I'm on my 5 off and getting a lot done around the house. But when I'm at work, it's a medevac here, a random Cherokee there. It's slowed down.
Cherokees are not random. Christy will tell you that if she could hear us.
I can hear you, Dan, and no, Cherokees are not random.
Okay.
So you guys are cutting back your hours. Does that mean you get your pay cut back as well? I guess you guys are all paid by the hour.
So it's kind of an hourly salary thing. Where the hours are getting cut back, but the base pay is still there. Like we normally will get like an extra 10% at night, or when we're training, or when we're in charge. Obviously, you don't get those unless you're actually working. I don't have my Terminator glasses at the moment. I can go get them if we really need to.
Which, by the way, while you're talking to them, do you guys? Chrissy can't hear Matt, but do you guys in the comments tell me if you can hear Matt or not? And Matt, please continue.
Yeah, just they've cut back on the hours, and just not much. Not much is going on. I forgot the question.
Okay. All right. So, what do you think's going to, it seems like the country's going to be locked in place here for a month. Do you see, I'm not asking you to speak, you can't speak for the ATC or the FAA, and I know that. So just you as Matt Wells, a pilot, do you think that general aviation is going to keep going right now through this next month? Do you think they're going to shut the airspace down? Any thoughts of what you can say or share?
Yeah. Thanks for emphasizing that. All the words are my own and do not reflect the views of the FAA or anything else. So no, I don't think they're
Right.
going to shut the FAA down. I don't think they're going to shut the airspace down. I mean, Echo airspace, you don't need much to go through there anyways. You don't need to talk to ATC for that. So people just go out and about and do whatever. But no, I don't see them shutting down. I see what I've seen is a lot of cutbacks, and what I've seen in some places is kind of termination. Like some of the ground schools are doing their stuff online if they can. Um, but there's a couple that are just not at Meacham. I think two of them. I think all of them shut down. One of the helicopter flight school is still going though. They're out there doing their stuff. But I've heard of other schools like Addison and Grand Prairie. They're still going full throttle.
Yeah. Well, Joe
So,
Casey, mentioned a little bit earlier that he is he's already he gave a check ride yesterday, or a couple. So, oh, why do I have two Christies here? That's weird.
it's still
Okay.
There's two Christies.
I turned it off and back on again, and now I can see Matt.
Oh
So,
crud! Well,
hey.
there she is. Yeah, no,
Aw.
it's not shutting down. I think that people will stop flying if they're like. I mean, most people have like common sense. Let's social distance or whatever. It's kind of hard to do in the cockpit of an airplane. I mean, the other day I went up with Steve, Christy's husband, Steve, and got checked out in the Club 182. And I mean, I'm sitting right next to him. We were almost like best friends for about an hour in the pattern, and Christy was behind us, so that was kind of
I was
annoying.
going to say, I was there too, but I was
Yeah.
in the airplane at least 6 feet away. So
She was in the airplane behind us, and then she decided that, yeah, never mind. Social
that's
distancing in the
okay.
pattern.
It's because I kept my patterns tight.
Oh, well, I started off normal, but I went to short approaches and practiced. Anyways, no, I don't see them shutting the airspace down. I do see things coming on the, rolling back just a little bit temporarily. Medevacs are still going, care flights are still going, life teams are still going. The military, they're still going.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, cool. All right. All right. Good.
Sorry.
Okay. Let me see if I can fix that real quick here. And everybody, thank you.
So I'm looking at
There you are.
questions on the list and stuff. Matt,
Okay.
from normal times, how does a pilot get a tour of tower or center in normal times? I'm guessing that's what you meant to say. In normal
Yeah,
times, you would just contact the facility.
I would like to go on record. Matt has given me many cruds about not visiting Meacham yet. It's not your fault. I actually had time and I tried, but the corona had other ideas and they shut down the facilities before I was allowed to. So I'm putting.
So we're going to hear that a lot. It's the corona excuse.
Matt, here is my commitment to you. As soon as they allow tourists back up, I will be there, my friend. I promise.
Yeah, okay. Well, sometimes you have to just see things to believe them. Anyways, in normal times, you just contact the tower or someone from the tower or the air traffic facility, and you can normally just call and set something up, and they'll give you a tour. If you're not a citizen, they have a process that you have to go through, and can't be waived. Really, you have to go through, fill out a piece of paper, mainly, and just say that you're a visitor. It's not difficult to get a tour in normal times.
Up there?
Yeah, your sectional leggings will actually help in case our radar shuts down.
Excellent. All right.
Sectional leggings.
Sectional leggings.
Let me show you.
Although today I am not wearing my sectionals, I am wearing just regular airplanes.
So, in addition to the first question that Nathan asked about recurrent training, they've shut that down for controllers. We normally go once every 6 months,
and that's down right now.
And that's stopped. Everything is similar to that is stopped. There was going to be a runway an RSAT meeting at Meacham that I was going to be part of actually next week, but they shut that down as well.
All right.
And just on hold.
Well, Matt, also I really appreciate you. You've stepped up and you've been helping me produce in the hangar. So
yes, thank you.
I really appreciate all the work that you do. And by the way, every video that I post on taking off goes through Matt's eyes first. He's my checker to
Quality
make sure
control.
that it's not anything that's going to come back to bite me too much.
So
Quality
it's
control
Matt's
at its
fault.
best.
Hashtag blame Matt.
Except when
Yeah.
the videos pop
All
up
right.
and they're like, "Oh, hey, I just uploaded it."
All right. So Matt, next up, I was just about to bring in somebody to talk about the pilot shortage, but hopefully he'll come back on here in just a moment. But Matt, thanks for being on here, and appreciate it. And I'm guessing you're going to keep watching. So
Yeah.
thanks.
I'll stay in the chat for sure.
All right, cool. Thanks, Matt.
Bye, Maddie.
All right. So Christy, one of the things I want to go into is the pilot shortage. So for 3, 4, 5 years, we've been growing and growing into a pilot shortage that people are looking at going, now's the time to become a pilot. With the coronavirus and all the layoffs and all that kind of stuff that's coming up, what do you think of the question of, is the shortage over?
No.
And
No, I'm so here's
but don't
the thing.
steal the thunder from our next guest, though, about this.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, he is here now, and I'm going to join.
I know that guy.
You know that guy. So would you welcome, please, Joe Johnson? Joe, the $1 million question: is the pilot shortage over?
Wow, that's an interesting one. Right now, it appears that.
What? And before you get started, I probably should tell people who you are. So Joe Johnson is, in addition to also being a DPE, you are a senior captain for one of the 121s. Check Airman, is that right? Or is that how you say it? You tell me.
What a check, Cameron, but currently just a line pilot at American on the Airbus.
Shout out.
Yeah, right.
On the Airbus.
On the
or
Airbus.
Boeings and everything.
Yeah, I used to be, for what someone said once, I was a well-respected member of aviation until I checked out on the bus. So.
Oh, that's not true. It is a fine airplane.
Right. No, it's a great airplane. It's a lot of fun to fly. Back to your question with respect to the shortage.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, certainly right now, there would appear as though that the shortage has ended with the parking of the airplanes, reduction in the fleet schedules, and such like that. But I think we will see it come back. It may take a little while, simply because people are out of work, they're out of money, and so the desire to travel is going to take a little time economically. But the airlines are ready and willing to reinstate the schedules as much as possible. So I do think that with the layoffs, well, I shouldn't say layoffs, but with the voluntary reduction in staff, we had a little over 600 of our senior pilots take the permanent leave from American. So that brought our numbers down. And then our short-term bid just wrapped up for April, and it was a little over 1,500 that took the short-term leave that varied from 1, 3 to 6 months in term. And the company, of course, as they see fit, has the right to rescind those in order to start the schedule, if you will. But we've been told that there's going to be another bid for short-term leave with approximately the same number of leaves for May. So that'll be a reduction right there in 3,600 pilots on our staff. As the airline comes back and we lay off, well, I shouldn't say lay off, but as we lose people, due to this economic downturn and as a result of permanent or mandatory retirement, we are going to see this shortage come back and with a vengeance. That's my opinion. But it's simply an opinion. But that's what I foresee. So with the schedules, unless there's significant permanent downturn in the schedule as they try to bring that back up, ramp it back up to pre-coronavirus standards, it's going to make the shortage even worse. That's kind of a hope, light at the end of the tunnel type situation. But it's certainly something to look forward to, and I don't think that it's over by any means. The shortage.
I have to agree with you, Joe. I think this economic downturn, although it's drastic and it's going to be pretty terrible for a little bit, it is temporary. And when it comes back, the airlines want to be in a prime position to be able to start turning it back on. One of the biggest hurdles that they've had for the last year or so and we saw this in some of the smaller regional airlines, was the inability to actually keep qualified pilots flying. And so I know that a lot of the airlines right now, they're looking at, they are cutting back, they're downsizing the routes and everything else, their schedules. But when it comes back, oh man, I see it's going to come back, and it's going to make, like you said, the pilot shortage is going to be even worse. So
Yeah, I would have to agree wholeheartedly. We were doing 900 flights plus a day out of Dallas Fort Worth, and we've cut that in half or more.
yeah.
But as it comes back, we will need those pilots. The mandatory retirement age of 65 didn't change as a result of this. So
Right.
we were going to be losing 1,000 pilots this year alone, or close to it. And that's going to be on top of the permanent leaves that took 600. Now, how many of those would have hit retirement anyway? I don't know, because it ranged all the way down to age 62. So we had people that were as young as 62 that took a pre-out 3 years prematurely. You got some that stayed on, some that were going to retire this year anyway because they were 64 going on 65. But how many of those I don't know. I have, the logistics aren't. I mean, they're there and available if you want to do the math, but I didn't want to sit down and figure all that out.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Right. Well, actually, we probably do with all the social distancing going on.
Well, I'm in training right now, so I certainly don't have time for that. Not right now.
Right. But I'm hoping to see a turnaround in it soon. I can say as a DPE, my work certainly hasn't slowed down. In fact, it's doubled or more.
Really?
Yeah, and that's because a lot of
some of the other DPEs have opted
not
to
doing
not
work. That's correct. They've chosen not to get out and expose themselves. And I'm not trying to be cavalier about the situation. I'm being selective and careful at the same time with how I go about doing the rides. And again, when we set up, we try to maintain our distance across the table as much as possible.
Do you wear the little face masks with the stripes on it and the gloves? And
no, I haven't done that. I just fog them down with Lysol as they come through the door.
Douse them with Windex and Lysol.
Yeah, exactly. So, but no, go ahead, Dan.
Well, I was going to say, but you are still flying right now. I mean, you're on reserve or call tonight, whatever that is.
Yes, I'm on call tonight. I got a couple more hours of call tonight, and I've got a few more days of on call. And it will vary. I'm on a short call out, which means 2-3 hours from the time the phone rings. I got to be at the airport. So basically I have a bag packed and ready to go when the phone does ring.
Well, Joe, are you ready for me to come fly the bus with you here in a few years?
Absolutely. Can't wait for you to get there.
Oh,
That's another thing is even though that there's been the voluntary layoffs and stuff like that, the regionals will still have to feed the main lines. And so there's always going to be that gap at the back end of the regionals. So for the folks that are still in school and training, you do have to come online eventually.
Exactly. I'll be here waiting.
Yeah, patience is a virtue, and understand that patience doesn't mean a week or two. It could be up to a year. This is my 31st year in this industry, and I've seen ups and downs a lot of times, and it always comes back. It always comes back.
Well, good. I'm excited.
I don't know if you were listening earlier when Joe Casey was on. We asked him a couple of DPE questions. Let me ask you, Jonathan wants to know any CFI check ride tips that you would give. CFI check ride.
CFI check ride tips. Well, specifically, what would he be looking for in a tip? Did he specify?
He did not. But let's just say that what's the number one problem you see that needs to be overcome for the CFI candidate?
Probably the anxiety, their nerves. They're nervous. It's a big check ride for them. It's a long check ride, and they have a lot of time and money invested in it that they don't want to lose. So I get that piece of it. I try to keep them as calm as I possibly can, during the course of the test. The other thing that I see quite oftentimes is while we're doing the flying piece aspect of it, there's not a lot of instruction being given because when they've practiced more of perfecting the maneuver than they have training.
Perfecting the training. Yeah. That's interesting. Here's another question from the people, and I don't know how much you want to answer this.
Okay.
So is the path to DPE, is it really more about who you know, for the process?
At one time that would have rang true years and years and years ago. It was a lot about who you knew. And most oftentimes it was the retiring inspectors or someone who was a friend of an inspector. Now it has become more of a process that is not as micromanaged, but more automated. If you go online and complete your application on DMS, it will make sure that you meet the minimum qualifications. And then as such, you turn your application in when there's a need. The office that has the need will query DMS for the most qualified candidates, and at that point, it will just simply randomly spit out names of the qualified candidates in that area that meet the needs that they have. If they need for example, if you had a helicopter rating and you were a helicopter CFI, that would probably increase your chances of becoming a DPE over just basically aircraft. Or if you had a specialty, if you will, that's certainly going to put you at the top of the list, because oftentimes that's where we run short, is on the specialty examiners.
All right, another question that I really like. Crazy Loca asked, and this is a good question. Is it worth it to pursue? Sorry, we got dogs outside. Is it worth it at an older age, say 52 or 50, whatever, to pursue a 121 job or even a freight job? What do you think about that?
Well, absolutely. If you've got 15 years left to go and you can get yourself into one of the mainline jobs, 15 years is not a bad career. 20 would be best. But if you can get 15 at a large carrier or a large cargo such as FedEx or UPS, then absolutely, that's not a bad idea.
And is it the same requirement for mandatory retirement for freight versus passenger?
Yes, it's still 65.
Okay. All right. Okay, Christy, do you have any more questions of Mr. Joe Johnson?
Oh, I don't know. I was sorry. I was reading through a lot of these questions here, and there's a lot of back and forth between like Matt and a few other people. It's very entertaining. Somebody said, "I just joined. What did I miss?" And I'm like, "Well, you missed a lot of technical issues, and you missed a lot of you missed some cool stories and stuff before." Let's see.
Well, let me ask you this while you're going through that, Christy.
Yeah.
Let me ask Joe Johnson the question that was asked Joe Casey. What is, Joe, you've had 31 years of ATP flying, but in all your decades and decades of flying, what is your most scariest glad you kissed the ground moment?
Wow, honestly, I can't think that a situation that I've had where I was really, really that concerned in 121. I always felt that the aircraft was going to be capable of performing, and that my crew was going to be capable of performing. If I were to go back, I would probably say that it was my first emergency in Part 121, and we had a cargo smoke indication climbing through 12, 13,000 feet. We just topped 10,000 on the way. And it's funny because you'll remember the vivid details of who you were flying with, and where you were going, and the type of airplane you were in, and what city you departed. So we had actually left Nashville. We were in a Saab 340, a B model. I was flying for American Eagle at that time. We had a relatively full load. It was a night flight. And we were going to Fort Wayne, Indiana. And unfortunately, I can't remember her last name, but it was a young lady. She was she'd been a rotor wing pilot in the Army, and her first name was Kathy, and she was my first officer. Had just gotten hired, had maybe 100 hours in the right seat when we got the cargo smoke indication. And I couldn't have asked for a better first officer at that time, because that was my first real live emergency, and that was probably the one time that afterwards, it was like, once you got that first one out of the way, well, every time after that, it was just a day in the life of an airline pilot, so to speak. But
there was a fire on board?
It turned out that particular fire detection system or smoke detection system on the Saab was real prone to dust and moisture to trigger a false alert. And for whatever reason, it did trigger alert as we were climbing out. And we suspect it was probably dust or humidity in there that triggered it. We notified the flight attendant. In the Saab 340, the back panel has a peephole on it and a light switch next to it, where the flight attendant or a crew member can look through into the cargo compartment and turn the light on to see if there's actually something going on. And briefing the flight attendant that there may be a fire in the cargo to go look through the peephole and turn the light on was quite interesting. And then the timing couldn't have been worse. As we were completing our checklist in the QRH, we discharged the extinguisher about the same time that she was looking through the peephole. So she saw this
Oh,
loud fog come, and she heard this pop as this thing let loose. And she came back calling to the front in quite a panic. And at first we were concerned, but then we realized what we had done, and it was kind of comical. After it was all said and done, we sat around and talked about it in the debriefing.
huh. That's a good story.
But
I'm glad nothing for your first one. That's a good one
yeah,
to
that was
break the
great.
ice. So, all right. So to recap, Joe, the biggest takeaway here is that for those thinking that this is the end of the pilot shortage, probably not. As we get back on track, because of the mandatory or not mandatory, a lot of people have taken early retirement and all those kind of things. If anything, when everything ramps back up, which maybe it's some time, even up to a year or so, you're saying,
That's correct.
then
Yeah, it's temporary, and I just want to actually like step in there because I saw some of the comments. Temporary does not mean it's going to be over in a month. Temporary is a very subjective word. Temporary could mean a month, 6 months, a year, 2 years, even 5 years. But either way, it's not going to last forever. It is temporary, and when it does come back, there will be a huge pilot shortage.
That's correct.
So
Post
I want
9/11,
to clarify.
right. Post 9/11 took approximately 7 years for its turnaround,
oh wow,
and all the recalls. And this is reminiscent of 9/11. If you're out there flying in it, the big difference here is that this was not due to a terrorist activity. This is more of a virus that's floating around, and so people are being forced to stay home, and that's why we're seeing the airplanes parked. Once the virus goes away, there's not the threat anymore, and people return to work and have money to spend, discretionary money. Then we're going to see the travel return. So it usually the stock market will lead it in most cases by about 6 months. So when you see the stock market take a big ramp up, you can expect probably 3 to 6 months after that the flying and the traveling will pick back up as well.
all right. Well, Joe, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, no worries.
It was
And
good seeing you, Joe.
You too.
Bye.
all right, you take care.
All right,
See ya.
bye-bye.
So, Christy, that was great having Joe on to talk about this stuff. Especially, I mean, how's it been for you? I mean, here you are, like right on the edge of getting into the 121s. You just go to school, you just get into this, and boom, this happens.
It has definitely made things very interesting. I get text messages, Facebook messages, Instagram messages pretty much every single day from people asking me, "Oh my God, are you still in training? I heard they, stopped the training class, et cetera, et cetera." My class, we are still in training. So we've got our schedules, we've got our sim schedules, like we're good to go. It is true that they did pause hiring and stuff for later classes, but my class is still in training. As you can see, I am still here in the hotel room.
And you've been there for what, 3 weeks now?
Basically, yeah, essentially, like off and on. I'll run home to like do laundry, grab clothes, etc. Come back. I'm really fortunate to be to live in the DFW area, and then I just I can go run and do what I need to do. But I essentially, yeah, this is Casa de Christi right now. But yeah, no, it's very intense. There's a lot of information, but it's been a lot of fun overall. It's a new challenging experience for me. For people that know me before, you know that I was a biochemist and I worked in allergy, and I've been more on the science and medicine world. And so going into aviation, a little over 3 years ago, it was great, and it's the culmination of all my hard work, and then bam, who thought worldwide pandemic, so
Right.
that I'm trying to stay focused day to day. What do I need to get done? What do I need to accomplish? What do I need to get done today and this week? And then kind of look forward what's coming in a couple weeks, what's coming at the end of the month, which is the check ride and check ride prep and everything for the ATP, or airline transport pilot certification. And then of course I have to do my IOE, or initial operating experience. And then I've got to come out on the other end of that. And so it's just, there's a lot of variables there, but as long as I stay focused day to day, I'm okay. It does make it interesting though.
Do you have to take any special precautions with the coronavirus? I mean, is maid service coming through your room every day? And,
No.
you know,
Yeah, so okay, to answer that broad question, yes, I am taking extra precautions. Um, we're staying fairly isolated as much as possible. Our, training groups are very, very small, just typically a couple people, in a room together with the instructor. Um, the maid service here at the hotel, they've stopped doing daily cleanings. They will only come on like Mondays and Fridays. They've shut down the hotel restaurant. They shut down the hotel like little coffee bar. They have a Starbucks downstairs. They shut that down. I mean, it's pretty serious. Like these businesses around us even are taking these precautions as they should.
well, and
Um,
how are you like getting food?
I actually meal prepped and I bring my own food.
What are others doing that are in your class?
They get like a Grubhub or Uber Eats or DoorDash delivered typically. I've seen a lot of that going on down here. So they'll just meet them downstairs and, give them the bags on a stick or I don't know. But yeah, so true story. So a lot of people don't know this. Well, you probably do know this. I gained a lot of weight when I was CFIing this last year. I gained like 10 or 15 pounds. And I saw myself on camera after we started publishing those the new season of In the Hangar, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm so round." So I decided, nope, this is it. This is the perfect excuse. I've been like working out in my room, and I meal prepped, and I've been eating well, and I've already lost 10 pounds since I started training.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, you know.
Well, I lost a lot of weight leading up to this, and then I went into 2 weeks of quarantine here, and I'm not even going to get on a scale right now.
Dude, the quarantine is the best thing to ever happen to me though, because I'm like, man, I got to be serious about this. There aren't as many options anymore. So like, I mean, I'm doing fairly well. And I'm in this
Oh,
call
see,
like
for me, I've got a refrigerator full of hot dogs and cheese and tortillas. So I've been making quesadillas and hot dogs, and that's it.
well,
I just rotate between the two.
so basically, so a friend of mine and we're doing this like weight loss challenge together. And so like we're really battling, to like I want to win. You know how I am. So I'm taking it pretty seriously.
Well, that's
So
good.
it's
All
gonna be
right. So,
on for the next season. I'm just gonna say that.
well, before we did the taping of In the Hangar, I went through 3 weeks of keto. So I punished myself pretty hard, but I did reach my goal. So um, at least there was that. That goal
Congratulations.
is long. Well, yeah, it's long gone now. But I imagine once I can actually get a haircut or something, I'll lose 10 pounds right there. All right. Somebody was asking.
Yeah, let's take some questions
Uh,
from people.
all right. So Jamie's asking, how safe do you think your BF, is that boyfriend or best friend? Um, how safe constantly fly the plane while he sleeps at 1:30? Does that, you mean 13,000 feet? Jamie, and he has oxygen and I'm not, and we are barely above the blizzard flying into Colorado. Well, Jamie, that's a big no. Are you a
Oh, I
pilot, first of
get
all?
it. How safe do you think it is for your boyfriend to ask you to constantly fly the plane while he sleeps? Um,
Right, in a blizzard, and at
uh,
13,000 when she doesn't have oxygen. Okay, well, he is IFR and CFI, and I'm not even a licensed pilot, and this has been going on for 30 some odd years. Well,
oh
okay,
my.
Jamie, if you're going, now I feel like we're in Geraldo here. If you're enabling him to do
No, no,
that,
no.
then you need to
No, this is like
fix that.
Dr. Phil right here.
Right.
Well, I would highly suggest Jamie goes in and takes like a pinch hitter course or something. If she is really concerned about this, she needs to go find a CFI to teach her some basics about the airplane to make her feel more comfortable about being up there as a non-licensed pilot companion. And we've done an episode on that before.
Yes, we have. And Jamie, go get your license.
Oh my
You
gosh,
know,
yes, flying is amazing.
yeah, it is. All right, so that's a good question. All right. So, Christy, we're actually stalling a little bit. I had Brian in the queue ready to come, and he had a family emergency. He was out at the pool, so I don't know what that means.
Oh my gosh.
Wait a minute.
Did he fall in again? I've already had to come rescue him like twice before.
Well, you're the pool lady.
I know.
You probably there's nobody to clean his pool now.
Yeah. Is he back?
Well, he texted me. Yeah, here he comes. All right. So, without further ado, bring in.
Did you fall in again?
Did you fall into the pool? No, he's dry.
No, I'm dry. My dog's about to fall in though. What's up?
Hey, Brian, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Did you fall into the pool again?
No, not yet.
Okay, good. I've come and rescued you like twice already. I just want to make sure. If I need to.
I'm sure it's coming. What are you guys up to?
Waiting for you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
we've been talking now for 81 minutes, waiting for you.
Well, I committed to my son. Like this morning, he's like, "Can you hook the Wii up to the TV?" And I said, "Yeah, but get me. I'm working." And then he asked me in the middle of the day, and I said, "Get tonight. As soon as we're done with dinner, let me know." So I finished dinner. You said, "Can you join?" So I came and sit down here, and he just peeks out the window at me through the blinds. I was like, "Oh man, I made a commitment." So I had to go hook the Wii up. That was my family issue.
All right, that's all right. I'm glad you got the Wii up and everything else. By the way, to follow up, Christy, real quick on Jamie's question. So, Brian, you might appreciate this. Jamie is flying for 30 years with somebody. She's not a pilot, and they're in Colorado flying at 13,000 feet, approaching a blizzard, and he's asleep and letting her fly the plane while she's not on oxygen. Do you think there's a problem there?
Yeah, she needs to let him sleep. Pilots get stressed out. They have to have their rest in. If she panics, she's going to wake him up. He's going to be in a bad mood. It's going to be a bad landing. Seriously, what's with her? Yeah, I agree with you, and I can see the problem there.
Okay, as a CFI, I cannot condone that.
As a CFI, I condone it. As a CFI.
CF triple I.
CF triple I.
I'm a CF triple I. I am. I'm the only one. One day I'm going to be a master CF triple I. Secret double master triple I.
A CCFI.
I'm going to just start adding consonants, and I'm going to be and put a couple I's at the end. That's me.
Okay, I like the CF triple I. This is a thing now. I'm just letting you know.
It is. Can you tell I haven't showered today?
What day is it? I don't even know what day it is anymore.
There are no days anymore. It's just day.
Oh.
All right. So, all right. So, Brian, we're wrapping things up here. We thought we'd bring you in as the anchor of the relay race here. So, finish us strong.
Oh, great! I gotta
funny quote.
Take it through. You want a funny quote? I don't know any funny quotes. I just play off of people. You gotta tee something up.
Hey, so we did talk about the wake turbulence event that you and I had.
Yeah, the more I see that clip, the more I feel like it was, because when you're in the plane,
we need to address that. So number one, I was there. It was pretty big. Like it felt like something just punched the side of the airplane, like something big, like the Hulk or something. It was pretty substantial, number one.
I don't even know that it was wake turbulence. I think we might have actually hit a 777. It was that rough. The video subtracts. I did the stabilization on the camera was on, so you couldn't see how we went upside down, and the camera hides all that stuff. Yeah. So the new GoPro 8s do that. So it's
yeah, no, I mean, the camera really, so seriously, so I want to clarify a couple things for people out there. There are people out there that think you were pranking me, like it was set up. And I want to just...
I had my friend fly his 757 a minute in front of us. Yeah, I did that.
They think you did something with the stick, the side stick. And so I want to clarify. Number one, Brian is not that talented, okay? He could not have done
There's nothing you can do with a stick in a plane to make it, dip that abruptly. That's air pockets and hot pockets.
Brian doesn't even like stalls. So there's no way he would have ever done that to the airplane. Okay, number one. But number two, like in addition to it being authentic, it was pretty rough. Like we slammed it, on the top of that wake turbulence, and the airplane like rolled real quick. So you are not a wuss. It was a legitimate concern, but with the exception of you peeing yourself in the cockpit, I think you
I do that a lot, though.
You handled it really, really well.
One question that people want to know, Brian, when you do pee yourself in the cockpit, does it come out avgas blue?
It burns. No, it's funny because it wasn't, it's wake turbulence, everybody hits it, but it feels like driving over your car really fast in a speed bump. I mean, it feels like hitting something solid.
Yeah, no, it did feel really solid. It was a legitimate thing, and I'm actually really happy we had cameras rolling at that point because it was probably one of the best moments of my life. I've never laughed so hard. Your reaction was so legitimate, and it was like you actually edited some of that stuff out, like some of the stuff out. I mean, but it was just
the part where you screamed.
Whatever. You saw my reaction.
You were the one.
I edited out the entire scene where we were on the ground repacking the chute.
Yeah. Your reaction. How did I not instinctively pull this handle? That was probably the best quote all day. Like, it took me 2 days to recover from that. It was so good. One thing that people missed, though, to give context to that video a little bit later, is your landing at Hicks was actually really not good. And
no, it was bad. It was horrible.
It really was. But we didn't have cameras going at that point because we were just going over to Hicks to have breakfast and do some light filming there and whatever else. And so later on in the video, when we actually are doing landings at Gainesville, I'm like, all right. Like I'm playing off of it, of course. And then you're like, yeah, see, that's how landing should be done. So
that was one of the first flights after the overhaul. So I'd been flying the Grumman for probably the Cirrus was down for about 8 months.
Yeah.
And so,
I mean, it was down for 6 to 9 months.
That's right. It was. And I had no idea. You talked to your mechanic about getting an engine overhaul, and he's like, yeah, we're going to do this and do this and do this. And telling me how many hours of labor it is, but shipping off parts of it and trying to get parts back. I mean, it was like, I don't think we're ever going to see this plane again. And then it came back, and man, it runs so well. But it's funny with that Grumman's 1,000 pounds lighter than the Cirrus.
Wait, the Grumman is what?
It's 1,000 pounds lighter than the Cirrus, and so I'm so used to landing the Grumman. This is where I justify the crappy landing. Hadn't flown the plane in a while. I've been flying a lighter plane.
All right,
Judge will still give you a 2.
Yeah, I'll allow it.
Fine.
That is
fine.
The third thing that I do want to point out to people is that in between all of the shenanigans, we actually did do a legitimate BFR or flight review. So we did go up, we did some maneuvers, we did all that stuff. Brian was able to demonstrate that he can in fact land an airplane on his own. It was like,
Yeah.
Which, by the way, about that video, Matt, the flying controller, has put a link in there to Brian's channel, Just Plain Silly. If you guys haven't subscribed, you need to do that.
Thank you.
Otherwise, Brian will get mad and leave and jump in the pool, and we don't want that. So save Brian from jumping into the pool. Subscribe to his channel.
We're about 15 degrees warmer out here. I would jump in. It's cold.
Hold on. You'll notice that his pool is actually filled with 100 low lead. So
Right.
Yeah, it does look like and the dog's thinking, what kind of fuel is that?
Yeah.
If you light a match around my pool, it's all going up. Where are you, Christy?
All right.
I'm in my hotel room, dude. Check it out. Look, I've got my mock pit set up, and I've got all my. Yeah, you like that? And look, I've got a popcorn ceiling.
Nice.
Right,
Retro.
and I've got these really cool like hotel style curtains, and look, wall art.
That looks like that Windows XP saver.
I was gonna say, what is that?
Dude, I uploaded that, and like everyone's like uploading their photos.
By the way, By the way, Cameron, who we talked to earlier in this show, it was a lot earlier. Cameron Morrison is asking, and I don't know which one of you, how does the citrus compare to? I don't know if that's a typo on purpose.
It's a
How does
typo.
the citrus compare to the Wong Warrior?
Oh, okay.
Don't lie. Don't lie. Don't lie.
Hold on. The Cirrus
Do you remember the first time you flew in the Cirrus?
I do. I was really pissed off.
Why?
The damn airplane flew the approach by itself. I had been hand flying approaches, and like literally, we just plugged it into the freaking Garmin. And Brian's like, "Okay,
We're done.
I'm flying. I'm flying. Look, I'm doing approaches." And I was like, "You're not doing approaches. The airplane's doing approaches." He freaking autopiloted that thing down to minimums and then landed and took credit for it.
The airplane's my instructor.
No.
I love my favorite quote was we were doing some RNAV approach, and one of us asked the question like, "How far will this autopilot take us?" And Alex gets on his phone and starts Googling, and he goes, "Well, if we let it, it'll smash us right into the 1,000-foot markers."
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I will say this: the Cirrus is faster, but the Wong Warrior is prettier, and she's better.
Better?
She's better.
Just better.
Yeah, she's prettier. Look, I will have you know, I am currently in the very, very preliminary stages of designing my panel of dreams for the Warrior.
I thought you said you're in the
Really?
beginning stages of putting the Warrior up for sale.
Oh, you shut your mouth. What is wrong with you?
You know, somebody posted, somebody left a comment on one of our videos. I think it was your 1,500-hour video.
Uh-oh.
And they made a comment about something about you like the Wong Warrior. And yeah, I mean, the discussion went to something like probably likes the plane more than her husband, Steve. It's
without question.
I'm sorry, it's breaking up. This is weird. I can't.
Well, Steve's not watching this, is he?
No, Steve's currently in an airplane.
Speaking of Steve, 2 nights ago, we're quarantined, and on Tuesdays, Buffalo Wild Wings does their half one buy one, get one. So I'm like, I'm going to go up there, and I'm just sitting there in my car waiting. I look over, I'm looking at my phone. I look over, and I'm like, I know that guy. So I just start taking pictures of Steve in his car and texting them to him.
Oh, that's fun.
And then we went in there, and it was like, everyone has to stay so far apart, but it was funny.
Dude, that's funny. So you did the social distancing thing. You got to distantly hang out with him. He was in his car. You're in your car.
That's right.
We should do that. Okay.
Yeah, I'm starting to take it more serious.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely am too, but I'm thinking we still need to go on a flight of 2. That's allowed. Me and my airplane, you and your airplane. We'll go hang out together and just distance that way. What do you think?
I was in the FSDO 2 weeks ago, and I asked him if I could fly my little plane, and he said, yes. He said, we have no reason to tell you not to.
I was going to say, and you know what? I have every reason to believe you because you're like a FSDO expert now.
Soon I'm going to just have a job there.
I know, you should just apply. They'll be like, Brian, you're back. Okay, so I'm thinking I actually have a couple days off or so here in the next couple weeks. We'll get together and plan something, and then we can post it.
Okay.
For the people.
Yeah, I'm down. I want to fly. Like, I haven't, my job has been just absolutely brutal, and so I haven't done anything really.
Okay.
We're playing trivia online at something tonight, but yeah, I want to fly.
I haven't flown since Sunday. I'm really starting to feel it, you know? So.
All right. If you beat me in your Warrior, then do a follow-up video, Cirrus versus the Warrior.
Okay.
Because if I lose, I can't. I gotta.
We'll do that.
Rematch.
All right. Loser buys 100 low lead.
I'll fill up one of your tanks.
Okay, that works. Deal.
How much?
The Wong Warrior takes like 3 gallons of fuel. I mean, it's nothing.
She's a great airplane. What can I say?
I filled up at Bridgeport yesterday at 340.
All right. Well, let's race. Loser fills the winners to the tabs. Whatever that may be.
Okay. Deal.
Because before we race, I'm draining all but like 1 gallon out of that
I
plane to
said,
make it lighter.
don't you dare. Don't you dare. Don't you
Taking
dare.
the seats out. I'm going to lose.
All right. Well, this has been a lot of fun. We are actually at 95 minutes, Brian. So
Wow.
we're live stream record here.
We should do this again next week. I'm very lonely.
It is a lot of fun. I will say we're down. Oh, we were down to 68 or 9. Now we're back up to 73. At our high point, we're well over 100. So Brian, you brought it down, but I appreciate it anyway. I'm glad you could be here.
Well, not to cross promote, but if you guys are bored, Saturday night at 7 Central, we're going to be doing aviation trivia on a live stream on my channel. And if people like it, I'm going to do it each week with a different co-host. So it's me and Spencer on Saturday.
You want me there?
Not this first one is going to be an experiment with Spencer, because if it fails and it's awkward and horrible, I'd rather just be 2 of us.
Oh, because
Then
I just wanted to beat you at all the trivia. That's all.
Oh, we're going to be doing. We've got slides, 20 slides of identify this aircraft. We've got 20 multiple choice, and then 20 just trivia questions, and a 2-minute break in between each game. So we think it's going to be about an hour and a half.
Got it.
And I'm working. Yeah, it should be fun.
Okay.
It's either going to be fun or it's going to be a disaster. So
it's going to be a disaster, but it'll still be
it'll
fun.
be a disaster. I got nothing else to do, man. It's
right,
that or
well,
hang out and spend time with my family.
We'll go fly. We'll go fly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well,
guys.
thank you for having me on, Daniel. I hope the rest of it was good. I'm going to go tonight and go watch whatever started just before I got here.
Well, we had a really good show. We started with Joe Casey. Joe's always great. We followed that up with Cameron Morrison. He was the guy who landed his Comanche when the engine went out, and we got an update with him, and he took his plane recently to Wingfield Aviation, and he's really impressed with their service, so that's cool.
I'm sure.
A sponsor of In the Hangar, and then we had Matt Wells on, and then we had Joe Johnson on to talk about the pilot shortage isn't gone away. If anything, when airlines resume, it's going to be even more.
It's temporary, yeah.
Yeah, it's temporary. So that's our big
We just don't
takeaway.
know what temporary is, but it's for the most part. I mean, it is temporary. At some point, it will come back, and when it does, we think the pilot shortage will actually be even worse.
Yeah. I agree.
All right. Okay, well, thank you very much. With that, I thank everybody out there for watching, and I really appreciate you guys. It's a lot of fun for us to put on these live streams. It took coronavirus to make us do something like this, but I think it's a great idea, and you guys might get tired of it. Let me know. Let Christy know. But if you like it, let us know that too, because it is a lot of fun for us to do that, and we love your interaction. We love the questions and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, this is the only social interaction I'm getting anymore. So,
yeah, a lot of people are that way.
Exactly.
So, all right.
Bring people together. So, all right.
All right. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
See you next time.
Bye. Y'all be safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye.